August 13th, what we've alluded to as being on the cards for the better part of 2 years was made official. CBS and the new Viacom, Paramount's corporate owner, will re-merge into a new company, ViacomCBS. This will have some major long-term ramifications for Star Trek, and with any luck, of the positive kind. Some are already drawing Marvel comparisons. This is indeed a necessary first step towards fixing the Star Trek brand, but a first step is all it is. Because if you think this solves all of Star Trek's issues, then brace yourself, because you're about to be hit by a bucket of icy cold water. In this editorial, I will go through the gist of the re-merger and the key players behind it, as well as the assertions that Star Trek could be the next Marvel, before giving my take on what this re-merger really means for Star Trek, and the obstacles which are still in place. If you do like this video, then please like and share it, and subscribe and smash that bell if you're new here. Now, let's get down to business. I'm going to assume that you've already seen our breakdown of the Star Trek rights situation, which also details the initial Viacom corporate split that landed the franchise into this predicament to begin with. If you haven't, then watch that, as I won't go through the details again here. What I will say is that in Sumner Redstone's defense, the act of splitting the old Viacom into the modern-day Viacom and CBS seemed like a bold move at the time. It's only with the benefit of hindsight that we see that it was a mistake. Even so, it was indeed a mistake, and for the past 4 years, Sumner's daughter, Shari Redstone, has campaigned hard for a Viacom and CBS re-merger. She met heavy resistance though, both within Viacom and especially within CBS. As such, the news outlets covering the business side of things tend to focus on Shari Redstone's big win, and rightfully so. Let's ever so briefly go through how this re-merger came about. The single greatest obstacle to a re-merger was CBS CEO and notorious Star Trek hater Les Moonves, as well as the board, which was filled with Moonves loyalists. That's some fierce competition right there, because where ruthless businessmen are concerned, Les Moonves is as tough and as hard as they come. He started out outside of it, and still rose to the very top of the entertainment industry, going from strength to strength, win to win. And this seemingly unbeatable executive stood in the way of Shari Redstone's dreams of a re-merger. After Moonves had made it abundantly clear that no re-merger would happen on his watch, then suddenly, out of the blue, decades worth of Me Too stories caught up to him, all at once, not tweeted, but in print, published in an extremely public manner, and at the worst timing possible for him. This led to his subsequent fall from grace, and being outed from CBS. He wasn't alone though. Several of his aforementioned loyalists on the CBS board were also Me Too'd, and replaced by Redstone loyalists. I guess those left still loyal to him must have gotten the message, because soon afterwards, CBS started initiating a re-merger with Viacom, the very same re-merger that now has been announced and which is in the process of being fast-tracked. I will not bore you with technical and strategic details of the merger itself. I know you are here for Star Trek, and that is indeed a topic that does get a lot of attention in the genre media. However, many of the articles I've seen covering the situation give a somewhat inaccurate account of what this re-merger actually does and means for Star Trek. Some outlets have pushed the narrative that Star Trek now can be the next Marvel, which is ridiculous, however you choose to look at it. In terms of wide appeal and sheer popularity, Marvel is the biggest brand in the world, and Star Trek is inherently too niche that it can ever be that. And that is fine. Star Trek was always niche, with built-in appeal to a large but not gigantic audience. And that way it did very well for itself. J.J. Abrams tried to give Star Trek that four-quadrant appeal with the 2009 reboot, but the wide audience didn't bite, and by the time of Star Trek Beyond, the four-quadrant summer blockbuster iteration of Star Trek had crashed and burned. In my humble opinion, Marvel-level blockbuster treatment goes against the DNA of what Star Trek is. Of course, the Marvel comparisons could also apply to the interconnectivity of the stories told both on film and TV. However, the potential for that was always there. There is a false narrative. Well, false might be pushing it, but certainly a not entirely accurate narrative making the rounds, which is being permeated by CBS themselves by way of the CBS-owned comicbook.com. This narrative claims that CBS had the TV rights, while Paramount had the movie rights, and now, with this remerger, both TV and movie rights will again be under one roof. While this technically is a correct description of the situation as it has been executed in public over the course of the past decade, I have been told that it is a misrepresentation of what the actual relationship between CBS and Paramount was, and what could have been done if the proper incentives were there. In the initial Viacom split, the movie and TV rights weren't broken up in such a clear-cut black and white manner that some report. I have been told that if Paramount really had wanted to make a TV series set in the Kelvin universe, all they had to do was secure a license to do so from CBS. That would likely have cost a fortune. But up until CBS decided they needed a Star Trek series of their own to push CBS All Access, they would, in all likelihood, have been happy to grant Paramount that license, for the right price. Indeed, the possibility of a transmedia franchise spanning film, TV, and everything else is why J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot signed on to Star Trek in the first place. So the potential for a connected film and TV franchise was there the whole time. It would just have required loads of red tape and licensing agreements between CBS and Paramount to actually make it happen. It wasn't until CBS produced a TV series of their own in Discovery that things got much more complicated. Because the real problem that was introduced with the Viacom split was the license and merchandising rights. It was precisely those issues that revealed just how incompatible CBS and Paramount's respective goals for the franchise were, which in turn resulted in J.J. Abrams jumping ship and taking on Star Wars instead. For the optimism of their Marvel comparisons, Deadline Hollywood gets this nuance right. Commenting on the remerger, they state that, with no lingering licensing barriers, the lucrative property created by Gene Roddenberry is now under one ownership for the first time since Star Trek Enterprise came to an end in 2005. It was, of course, the very next year that CBS and Viacom were split off into two separate companies. Up until the latest big-screen Star Trek offering from Paramount seemed to go into suspended animation last year, CBS Studios were not initially able to use characters in their all-access shows that could also appear in the movies. That is what this remerger does. It removes the license and merchandise issues, and in the process, it removes the competing corporate goals of CBS and Viacom that tore the franchise asunder. Unfortunately, this is but the first step towards a true reunification. While this remerger solves the issues between CBS and Viacom, there are more stakeholders involved, and they may yet keep the current issues plaguing Star Trek in play for a good while longer. As we've stated before, CBS issued Paramount an alternate license to make their Kelvin timeline Star Trek movies. If this had only revolved around Paramount and CBS, two companies that will now become one, this whole alternate license would have been a non-issue. Alas, Paramount hired Bad Robot as production company, and allegedly gave them a stake in the license in the process. Meaning, until they're either bought out or their license lapses, they are still part of the proceedings, merger or no merger. Case in point, that mythical Quentin Tarantino Star Trek project? It is actually developed by Bad Robot, not Paramount themselves. Just because Bad Robot signed a mega deal with Warner doesn't mean their brand of Star Trek has ended. Likewise, due to corporate shenanigans on the CBS side, Secret Hideout remains linked to the production side, all while employing the alternate Star Trek license. Just wait until you see the 25% different Borg in the Picard series. Our sources insist that Alex Kurtzman has been removed from daily production operations, but the 5-year mission Leslie Moonves gave him also encapsulates Secret Hideout. So both Secret Hideout and Alex Kurtzman are under contract for years to come. Former Paramount employee and our present-time good friend Matthew Kadish is even of the opinion that Kurtzman may use this remerger as an opportunity to strengthen his grip on the Star Trek franchise. Personally, I hope that Shari Redstone will have some good opinions on how Star Trek should be run. She certainly remembers what Star Trek once was, and from what I've been told, she isn't a huge fan of how it is run today. Here's to hoping. For Star Trek, despite the merger, there are still hurdles to overcome. We will explore this at much greater length in future videos. Till then, let me know your comments on all of this and what you think will happen next in the comments.
Before you go, check out these other videos that may interest you, and our sister channel Midnight's Edge After Dark for more live shows and more laid-back content.